This is the Decahedron Podcast with Joe and James, two old dudes talking about RPG stuff.
Hi, James.
Hello, Joseph.
How was your week?
All right, quite busy. I was doing some thinking on the new project I had talked to you about a lot.
Oops, look at that. I purposely turned off the beep from my phone because...
We're in real life, so don't worry about it.
That was my daughter. That was the one that from out of town that came in to visit last week. That's what we did last week. So here in town, we have an authentic English pub. Yeah, they staff it with English students who are here on a work-study thing. I guess they're hospitality students. And because my daughter was born in England, I was living there at the time when she was born. She has a certain love for things English. And my wife, of course, is Scottish. So she likes to have food that she grew up eating. So I thought that would be kind of a neat little thing to do. And this weekend, I'm thinking about doing a corn maze. Haven't done one of those since the start of the pandemic. So I said, it'd be fun.
Now, don't get lost in there.
It's a maze. That's kind of the point. So have you ever... Do they have mazes up where you live?
Oh, yeah, there's a couple. I haven't done them in many years, but I have done them as a kid.
Oh, I never did them as a kid, but as an adult, I do them, and they have little puzzles in there to figure out, and I like that. It's kind of like being in a dungeon.
Well, don't you also do, geocaching?
Oh, I haven't geocached in years. It got really lame. I like the hunt. I don't like the... the story would be too long and too unrelated. Why don't we start the topic?
Okay, and what is the topic?
The topic this week is another review. It's the last week of OSR October, and I thought we would pick an OSR product to review, and just to prove my belief that not every OSR product needs to be fantasy-based, I picked White Star White Box Science Fiction Role-Playing.
Actually, I actually picked that.
Yeah, okay. So, because originally I said we're going to do White Box, and then later on, because I knew I was going to say that OSR didn't have to be fantasy, I threw this one out as an option. But I asked for your opinion because if you're already like knee deep in the other one, I didn't want you to have to change gears. So yeah, I picked this one. Anyway, I can talk. Let me give the details. White Star, White Box Science Fiction Role-Playing. The copyright date on the copy I have is 2015. It's by James M. Spahn, and it costs $10 as a PDF. If you want a printed copy, I think it's up to like $30 or something like that. I looked last night, but I didn't write it down.
And remember, Joe won't spend more than $10 on a game.
We haven't done that episode yet. So overall impression, I would say that this is D&D for Star Wars. What about you?
I would agree on that, and I'm going to actually pull out a couple of funny things I saw in there that made me think of Star Wars and Dune.
Oh, I didn't see anything Dune related, but it sounds like we might have something close to the same thing written down. Yeah, and specifically, though, I would say Star Wars. I don't think this would work particularly well for Star Trek. Babylon 5, again, I don't think it'd be a great fit.
No.
It's very Star Wars-y in its feel and execution.
Yeah.
So anyway, we have our 3 and 3 format, 3 things we don't like, because no product's perfect. That's not a slam on any product when we come up with 3 things that we don't like and 3 things we like. So let's start with the don't like column. What is your number 3 thing on the things you didn't like?
Well, I'm going to hop on what you started with. I always like when the author is being creative, but I felt a lot of rip-off from Star Wars on this.
So let me play the devil's advocate here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was exactly his intention. I don't think that he was being uncreative. I think his goal, of course, I don't know. I haven't asked James M. Spahn. I don't know. I think his goal was to create a Star Wars role-playing game, but he doesn't have the license. So he has to be creative in how he talks about things. Like when it brings up the Yoda, right? He renames it. I think that was intentional. I think that was his goal, was to give you Star Wars with all the serial numbers filed off.
Actually, I was going to make that comment a little later on, but it's a good point to go into it. I was just saying, in my mind, everything, the Star Knight was the Jedi Knight, and the Star Sword was a lightsaber. And I was going to say he just couldn't use it because the almighty Star Wars franchise would be down on him in 2 seconds.
Yeah, well, I think WotC would, right? Because doesn't WotC have the license? But yes, no, I agree. But I don't think that's a thing to not like. Well, maybe, because I don't know. If you just heard a weird cut, there was an audio issue, and I didn't know if we had to recover. So we were talking about WotC and having the Star Wars license, and how I think this was very much. Oh, I know where we left off. How I was thinking that this was very much intentional writing of Star Wars for an OSR type system, and whether or not I like that, I was waffling. Would I say that it's a don't like? What I don't know. And James was about to say something to that, and that's when things happened.
Blame it on me as always.
No, I'm blaming it on your microphone, actually. So you were saying something to that, but you don't know what you were saying?
I don't know where we left off, but I was basically saying that Star Wars, whoever owns Star Wars presently would be going hog wild of slapping him across the room about your use of our product.
All right. So my number 3 was that there were no starship creation rules. There are just, here's some starships that already exist, and then there's some rules about how you can add a modification to one of those starships, but you can only do that if you are the right level pilot. And a science fiction role-playing game without starship creation rules, in my mind, is missing half of the whole purpose behind getting a science fiction role-playing game. So that was my number 3. What's your number 2?
I'm going to sort of stay on your subject. The one thing I saw in here that made
I can ask for your thought for number 3. What's your thought for what I just said?
Actually, I'm going there some more a little bit.
All right.
My thought was they are not looking at the spaceships being spaceships. They were looking at it as being a character within the game because of some of the rules I was reading through, like the house rule about the starship not being destroyed.
I am not talking about that right now.
Right, but I'm just saying that's what it made me feel.
No, I'm just saying, I hear what you're saying. I have nothing to say right now. If you're familiar with the format of this show, that should tell you something.
So, to me, it was the way they did treat the starships.
So that was your number 2 bad thing?
Yes.
All right. My number 2 bad thing is that there's no systems damage. And by that, I mean during starship combat, your starships have so many hit points, and they did not call them hull points. Thank you very much. They have so many hit points, and when you lose those hit points, you blow up. That's it. And maybe again, because I'm more of a Star Trek guy than a Star Wars guy, I don't like that. I mean, the drama happens when your thrusters go out, but you still have weapons, or vice versa. You have to get those systems back online, all that. And there's none of that. It's just hit points. And again, I think that is something that takes away a lot from a role-playing game.
Okay, I see that. I don't know if this is a plus or minus, and me and you have talked about it in the past, and it may even come up as another show thing in the future. The natural 20 or natural 1 rolls on our dice, where 20s are always a hit and 1s are always a fumble. So sometimes, and it depends on the person who's running the game, sometimes you get extra damage, or in a fumble you get something happen to your weapon, or you get out of place. I always find it's fun, but sometimes it's overdone.
So, I mean, they don't talk about it much at all. They talk about it in one little box as an optional rule that your GM might want to say that a 1 or a 20 have special meaning. So I don't see why there's enough there to not like, unless you just don't even want them to say that it's an optional rule.
No, it's more like it's sometimes, if it's done well, I like it. But there are some DMs that just don't use it effectively. It's a love-hate with that, is what I'm going to say.
Okay. I would not put something like that on a list of things I don't like about the game, about something that a GM can do with it. But hey, that's me. My number 1 thing that I don't like, and it's kind of harsh to throw this one onto White Star, because White Star is just a Swords and Wizardry offshoot. Swords and Wizardry is a rewriting of Zero-E, original Dungeons & Dragons. So he got this straight from there, but my complaint here is that attribute bonus range. If you have an 18, you get a +1. If you have a 3, you get a -1. There's no point. James, stop your chair. there's no point in having attributes at that point. What's the point? There's between the lowest to the highest, there's a 10% difference on a D20. And I don't like.
Okay, we're going to go to what we do like now.
Well, unless you had something to say about that. Yeah, so I guess not. Okay. So let's go to our likes. So what's your number 3 like?
Part of the book, and I think it's in the original Dungeon Masters First Edition, is that most of rule number 1, and I'm taking it right out of the book, most important rule is that the referee always has the rights to modify the rules. The reason I like that, and especially in more heavy book games like Dungeons and Dragons and several other ones that have like 20 different books to go through to find rules, you don't want to sit at that table and spend 10 minutes finding the rule that fits the situation. Just let the game master, dungeon master, whatever it is being called, make a rule and check it after the game.
And that, my friends, is the heart of the OSR. We call it rulings, not rules. I agree with you. I mean, that rule was always there not always. That rule was there in the very first editions of original Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. But it's interesting when you get to AD&D, Gary's tune changes a little and he says, you will not change any of these rules. If you're not playing this way, you are not playing AD&D. So, but that's because money gets involved. Anyway, my number 3 things that I liked were the aliens. Again, all the serial numbers are filed off, but I saw the Borg from Star Wars. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I saw the Daleks from Daleks from Babylon 5, not Babylon 5, from Doctor Who. I saw the Cylons from Battlestar Galactica. Right. Mm-hmm. I saw Hawkman from Flash Gordon. Actually, that one wasn't even disguised. They had a feline race, which I was wondering if they were the Caitlins from Star Trek, but not many people remember the Caitlins. So I don't know if that was them or if they were taking like some of the Traveler races. They, of course, had...
It could have been taken from Buck Rogers as well.
I don't remember a cat species of Buck Rogers, but maybe, sure. I saw Yoda. Mm-hmm. I saw the Klingons, and I saw Ewoks.
And I'm going to say the Klingons one was not even disguised other than the name.
Well, none of them were disguised other than the name.
Okay, so we're agreeing on that then.
Okay, so your number 3 thing on the like column.
Well, I always, when creating characters, I've always liked at least an average ability scores for a character. So I've always liked the 4d6 and drop 1. I like that from this here, that was in there as an option to roll your dice. I always hated the 3d6 because
you're a munchkin.
I'm not a munchkin. I like an average character.
Because you love an above average character. What you hate is having even one thing that your character is weak on, one thing that's a disadvantage, one thing that might add some character and excitement to his life. You hate that because you want to excel at everything. And if you can't excel, you'll settle for being average.
Half and half to your comment. I still like average. I think if you're going to be an adventurer, you have to at least be, in my opinion, above average. Because no average schmo is going to go out there trying to save the world.
See, I think this gets us into Die Hard. I'm going to sound like Michael Scott here, but in the original Die Hard, wow, I'm sounding like Rhode Islander. My native Rhode Island is coming out. In the original Die Hard, Bruce Willis's character, John McClane, he's just a normal cop. And he's just in this situation. And it is his determination that turns him into the hero, not because he's super tough and not because of anything else. By the time you're into like the 3rd or 4th movie, he's jumping off Harriers and it's like, yeah, whatever. But that first one, no. And that's what I like in my games is the everyman arising to herodom because of his grit and determination, not because he has good attributes, of course. But that's me. All right.
You mean he's not Super Dad?
My number 2 on the like column is, the generic races. They just had Alien Brute and Alien Mystic, and then you dress them up however you want. And I like that. I like that. The only thing I didn't like about it, or I thought could have been better, is that the Alien Brute comes with these certain class abilities. And I thought it would have been better if he said, out of this list of 5 or 6 or whatever, pick 2 or 3. And that way each alien brute could be different. You can make your character a little more customized to what you want to play. And not every alien brute is the same thing with just different makeup on. But that's easy enough to house rule in. I would lower the XP a little bit because you're taking away some of the abilities. But yeah, that's what I would do. Anyway, that was my number 2. What do you think of the generic races?
I looked through them, but nothing really caught my eye.
Yeah, okay. So what's your number 2? Oh, no, we did your number 2. What's your number 1?
Well, I like how the author tried to be funny, and I just picked one of the skills out there. Stick jockey. It's just the way he did skills or attributes, whatever you want to call it. He had a sense of humor when he was writing them up on all of it. The stick jockeys, the Star Knights. It's just the way he wrote into the book. It was to be lighthearted, if I think that's the best way to say it.
Okay. My number 1 thing was, as you mentioned before, and I said I will talk about that later, was Starship Combat. While I did complain about it a little bit and my dislikes, overall I really like the system. I like it when you treat the starship as a character. I know you said you didn't. This was something I first saw David Pulver do in Big Robots, Cool Spaceships for Big Eyes, Small Mouth. I thought it was a brilliant way to do things. I like it. And because it's taking the rules you already know and it's just applying them slightly differently. So I like that. I like the way that he handles differences in pilot levels with the pilot skill effects for combat. I would have done that a little differently again. I would have, instead of saying it happens, you get this one advantage at 4th level and this next advantage at 7th level. I would just say that if your skill was greater than opponent's skill, then you get 1 advantage. If you're like 3 levels better, you get 2 advantages. And I would make it go that way. But again, easy enough to house rule in. I like that the movement for the space combat was abstract. If you've ever tried to play Traveler space combat using the vector movement rules, 1, you need a surface the size of a basketball court, and 2, the entire game shifts into not how good of a pilot is my character, but how good at math and planning ahead am I, the character, the player, which I'm not always a fan of. I would have liked it a little better if non-pilots had something more to do during combat. As it is right now, they can man a gun or they can do nothing.
Well, they can repair the ship, but
No, they can't. There's no rule for that in there. The only rule that's in there for that is that a pilot can do a jury rig repair, and that's actually what I was about to say.
Oh, you're right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, there is no ability to repair it during combat, except a pilot can do it, and only lasts for 2d12 rounds, and then all the damage comes back. And I liked the way that the shields work. I've been doing science fiction games a while. Shields are something I've always wondered about. My only complaint with those is that they add a little bookkeeping because you have to keep track 5 rounds from when they took the damage. They get a point back, and that's, again, more bookkeeping than I would like to do. But overall, I really, really like the Starship Combat system, and I give it an A+ for that.
Okay.
So overall, I thought the game was better than Star Frontiers, but I don't think I would play this.
I'm going to agree on that. They did have one additional thing in that could be taken away to a lot of ideas for DMing, though, was there in the back of the book, the sandbox, where they give you ideas of campaigns. I like that, but it was more of an add-on to me.
Chapters 11 and 12, I think they were. They are definitely an add-on, and you know how I feel about playing other people's worlds, so I think that's just a waste of space. If you want to have a sample adventure, if you want to have a sample world, make that as another product and don't include it in the core rules. That was actually on my list of dislike things. I just never got there because I cut it off at 3.
Yeah, I have that problem sometimes.
Yeah, you do. It just doesn't feel science fiction to me. It feels like D&D in space, especially with alignments. Anyway, if I were going space, I'd go Traveler. I would go with GURPS Space. I would go with Big Eye, Small Mouth. There are so many other things I would go with that feel like science fiction more than this.
I I'm going to have a comment on that alignment setting, and this is from them. With alignment, it's more us against them, lore against chaos, good against evil, players against NPCs. So it's a generic thing.
In my notes, I have alignments in space, us versus them. So, and he does dress it up. He says, this is his way of saying the Empire versus the rebels. So it's really a faction type thing, in which case do that. I don't know. But yeah, anyway, it doesn't feel like a science fiction game to me.
This could have been used for any time period. The mobster era, future, current, or even past. It was not anything that was really space oriented.
Really? Star Knights in the mobster period? I don't know how you would do that.
They would be called, what was it? FBI?
The Untouchables?
Untouchables, yeah.
So, yeah, and at $10 for a PDF, I think that's pricey. I can buy a printed copy of Savage Worlds for that price. Although I was looking back, because I was like, I can't believe I spent $10 on this. No, I got this for free. And I don't know why. I got it in 2017. So I don't know if maybe it was part of a Humble Bundle or a bundle of holding, or if it was like a free RPG day or something, or they were just giving away for free for a bit. But I have the receipt for it in my drive-through RPG thing, and it just says $0. I don't know why I got it, but that explains why I got it for free. I don't know why I got it for free, but that explains why I got it, because it was free. So I am not giving this one thumbs up. I'm not trying to give it a thumbs down. I'm going to give it a sideways thumb.
To me, it still feels like Dungeons and Dragons in the old boxes. I don't feel anything different.
Yeah, but that's what it was supposed to be, but with a spacey feel.
Right.
And I get the goal. The goal is to take the rules you already know how to play this game. Let's just play it in space now. I think that's great. The idea is great. Mm-hmm. It's just the execution, it wasn't there for me.
I agree half with that. I would take out some of the ideas and use them on other games, but yes, it is a middle of the road.
So where's your thumb? Up, middle, down, or in the middle?
In the middle.
In the middle. So 2 middle thumbs. This might get us some hate, because the whole idea behind OSR October is to shine a spotlight on great products. But I thought this was going to be a great product when I picked it. I was like, oh, this will be great. I'll love this. No. But I don't hate it. I mean, I've definitely seen worse games. Adventures in Fantasy, I'm looking at you. We have covered this book. And next week, we finally get to do something that's not OSR related. Oh, this is going to be the super secret episode that I haven't told you what it's about yet.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on that one. We'll see how it goes. But we want to add in what I was talking about earlier?
Oh, yeah.
Or were you guys separate?
No, I will give you lead in. So for those that were listening, I did a solo episode last week. I called it a JOLO. And we talked about James doing a solo episode in that. And but he wants to reach out to the community first. So James, go ahead and make your plea.
Okay, I'm going to start off with, for the first episode, and Joseph believes in science fact, not science fiction, so he's not really into the groove of where I'm going with this. The question I have is, when you roll your dice, are there things that you do before the game to purify your dice, or is there certain things you do at the table? Do you allow other people to touch it, or is don't touch my dice at all type things? What do you do when your dice are rolling badly, and what have you done, or what have you seen done or heard of?
In other words, you want to know people's dice superstitions and rituals. Like I used to play with somebody that always put the dice with the highest number upwards, so it would train them to land in that position.
I will neither confirm or deny if I was that person.
Yeah, so this was on our episode list for a while. Like you've heard us talk about our episode list. We got a great big list of episodes we plan on doing. And I said, James, you were looking to do a solo episode, and I really have nothing to say about this other than it's a hunk of plastic, or in this case, metal, the one I have in front of me. There is no magic involved. It's going to land where it lands. And I don't have any of those. So maybe that's something good for you to do on your own. So that is going to be his first solo episode. So anyway, we're at 32 minutes of recording. We're a little shorter than that, real time. Thanks for joining me, James. Thanks for joining us, audience.
And have a good week, gentlemen and ladies.
And I already said thanks for listening. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Decahedron Podcast. Send email to feedback@decahedron.com. Remember to spell decahedron with a K. Voice feedback can be sent through the Anchor website or by calling 562-RPG-CAST. That's 562-774-2278. Links are in the show notes. Music is courtesy of Kevin MacLeod, logo by Design Cat. Thanks for listening.
White Star, White Box Science Fiction Detail. White. Oh, talk, Joe, talk. Here we go again. White Box. No, this is going at the end of the episode.